Hi everybody, welcome to today's lesson. My name is Mary Beth and I'll be your teacher. Today we're going to be learning about how to graph on the coordinate plane. Let's go ahead and get started. So what is the coordinate plane? Well, usually we see the coordinate plane middle school, high school, and into college. It's really used for a lot of different things, but especially for graphing in algebra and in geometry. And the way that the coordinate plane, which is also known as the Cartesian plane, is formed is by using two number lines, which we typically use for graphing one-dimensional space. And then we put those two number lines perpendicular to each other, which means they form a 90-degree angle or a right angle, and they meet at 0, okay? That point where they meet is called the origin, and there are 4 quadrants that are formed based on those two perpendicular lines. The horizontal number line is called the x-axis, and the vertical number line is called the y-axis. So the coordinate plane, rather than graphing one-dimensional objects, is used to graph two-dimensional objects. All right, so let's look at the coordinate plane. So here we have an example of a coordinate plane, and we can see that the x is labeled here for the horizontal line, and then the y is labeled here. This is kind of typical for the vertical line, okay? And this 0 point is called the origin, and we can see that there are 4 sections that are created. One here, upper right, one here, upper left, down here, lower left, and then here, lower right, okay? And when we're graphing, we don't typically label the quadrants on here, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and do that for you now so you can see how we label the quadrants, so how we think of the quadrants. So we use Roman numerals to label the 4 quadrants, and we start with the upper right-hand quadrant. This one here is quadrant 1. Then we go counterclockwise to label the rest. So the upper left is quadrant 2. The lower left is quadrant 3. And then the lower right is quadrant 4. Okay? And so when we're graphing points on the coordinate plane, we need 2 values. We need an x value and we need a y value. And together they make what we call an ordered pair. And the format for the ordered pair is written like this, where we have the x first, comma, the y value, and then they're written in parentheses, just like we see down here. Okay, and we'll get to that example in a minute. A helpful way to remember which comes first, the x or the y, is just to think about the alphabet, and the x comes first in the alphabet, so the x comes first in your ordered pair. So in this example, we're going to graph each point and then decide which quadrant they're located in. Okay, so are you ready? Let's go ahead and start with our first point A, which is 2, 5. And so first, typically, we're going to find our x value, and then we're going to go up or down to find our y value, and then plot the point. So starting at the origin, I'm going to go over to 2 on my x, and then I'm going to go up to 5 on my y, and that would be here where these 2 grid lines intersect, and I'm going to put a point, and I'm going to label it as point A. And we can see that point A is in quadrant 1. And in point A, the x and the y are always both positive. So that's helpful to remember. So I'm going to go ahead and label this as quadrant 1. All right, let's take a look at point B, which is -3, -6. So -3 will be our x, and -6 will be our y. So starting at the origin, I'm going to go over to -3 on my x. I'm going to go down to -6 on my y, and I'm going to plot a point right there where those grid lines intersect, and I'm going to label that as point B. Which quadrant is that? This is quadrant 3, And in quadrant 3, both x and y will be negative. So here I'll label this as quadrant 3. All right. Point C is next. This is where x is positive 4 and y is negative 3. Do you want to take a moment to see if you can figure out where that's going to go? You want to find x is 4 and y is negative 3. Where will that be? All right, let's do it together. X is positive 4 would be here. And I'm going to go down to negative 3 for the y. And we'll be right here for point C, which is quadrant 4. How did you do? Did you try that on your own and did you get it? All right, you're doing really well. Let's go ahead and plot the next point, which is D, negative 1, 2. Do you want to go ahead and try and find that first? X is negative 1 and y is 2. Where will that be? Okay, let's do it together. Starting at 0, x is negative 1, that would be here, and y is 2, that would be here, and there's our point D. Did you get it? And this is quadrant 2, where x is always negative and y is always positive. All right, nice job. Okay, the next one is a little different. This is 0, 0. Where do you think that's going to go? If you said the origin, you are right. The origin is 0, 0, right? There's both x and y are 0 at the origin. And so that's kind of a trick question. What quadrant? There is no quadrant there. It's right at the intersection, so it's not contained within any quadrant. So I'm just going to put a little null symbol there. It's not applicable. I could also put NA, not applicable. Okay, there's no quadrant for the origin. All right, now the next one is also a little different because we can see that one of the values is 0. In this case, x is 0 and y is 3. Where do you think that's going to go? That's a little different. X is 0 and y is 3. That's actually going to be right here on the y-axis, and that's point F. And again, there is no quadrant for that. It's right on the y-axis. All right, y-axis. And maybe for this one above, I can just say that this is the origin. All right, one more, which is G, negative 2 for x and 0 for y. Where do you think that's going to go? Negative 2 for x and y for 0. Okay, so negative 2 for x is here, and then we don't go anywhere for the y. We're going to go ahead and just put a point, and that is point G right there on the x-axis. So again, there is no quadrant that that point is in. It's on the x-axis. All right, nice job, everybody. The coordinate plane is a foundational concept when we're learning higher level algebra and geometry and pre-calculus and calculus, and it's really very helpful. So knowing this basic understanding of the coordinate plane will really help you when you get into those more advanced topics. All right, so here's our final slide. Nice job showing up today. Excellent work. I hope you found this video helpful in understanding the coordinate plane better. If you liked this video, please subscribe so you can see more of my videos. You can also check out my weekly classes, ask me a question, and sign up for a private lesson. See you next time.